Hey guys, it's Matt Bean here at the Mount Royal Curling Club here in Quebec, and today I'm going to give you 5 tips to becoming a better curling team. So let's get started. Okay, so here are 5 things that you can start doing immediately as a curling team to improve your game as a team. I'll be covering these in more detail as I develop my communications course for my website, hopefully early in the 2020 season this coming September. But for now, I'll just give you the overview so you can start implementing these things right away, and you'll see your team getting better hopefully by the end of this season. So tip number 1 is both sweepers need to start at the back line. This is going to allow you to better follow the stone and get a feel for how fast the stone is traveling before it gets to the hog line. So if you were to start sweeping here, for example, you have all this distance, you're not getting a good read on the weight. That's why it's never good. You hear people say the skip should not be calling weight. The sweeper should be calling weight. Why? Because he's looking from down there in front. The best person in the best position to call weight is the person beside the stone, or the person throwing the stone. But after the hog line, it's the people that are next to the stone. So start here at the back line. Tip number 2. The person that is on the stone, or the person whose brush head is closest to the stone, should be on the low side. Now, a lot of people don't believe in directional sweeping or holding the stone, but it seems to work. I've noticed it working, especially with club heads that allow for more scratching. You'll want to be on the low side. So, the low side in the closed position. So, for example, if this person is throwing an out turn or counterclockwise rotation, I would be on the low side here, so I'll be closest to the stone in a closed position. The person that's not on the stone, or who's away, will be on the high side, will be in the open position. And this is so they can keep their head down the sheet looking at the skip. So I'm away from the stone in the open position. And so that leads me to tip number 3. As we're following the stone, and in this example, I am on the high side. He's throwing an end turn or clockwise rotation. So I'm on the high side, I'm in the open position. The tip number 3 is the person delivering the stone needs to tell the sweepers. Give them a piece of information, even if that feels good. Or they may say, I'm outside a little bit, or I'm inside a little bit, or I pushed it, or I'm holding it back, I'm pulling it a little bit. Any kind of information to help the sweepers understand what's happening with this shot is useful. So that's tip number 3, is the person delivering the stone needs to give a piece of information to the sweepers. Okay, so that leads me to tip number 4. After the person delivering the stone gives me that information, within a couple feet or a few feet past the hog line, I need to relay the weight to the skip. And that's why I'm in the open position, because I'm looking at the skip and I'm telling him, you pushed it, or it's heavy, or it's light. Heavy and light don't mean so much to a skip though, because if I'm calling, let's say for T-line, and I say it's heavy as a sweeper, if I'm the skip in that there and you're saying it's heavy, how heavy is it? Is it going to hit the board? So try to tell them, use the Furby system, which I covered in a previous video. It's an 8, or it's a 9. So he knows, okay, where the stone's going to end up. But if it's really heavy, say it's hack. That way he can possibly do a plan B or something like that. So tip 4 is to communicate the weight to the skip. And tip number 5 is, again, the person that's in the open position who's not on the stone needs to always be looking up at the skip. Because again, in a future course, I'll be covering hand signals and things like that from the skip, but I need to be looking at the skip. So if he's calling for sweep, me as the person with the open stance position is looking and seeing that, and I can relay that information to the person that's in the closed position, or who would be holding the stone's line of delivery. So I'm in the closed position, for example, and the other sweeper's in the open position, and I'm just following it down with my brush head close to the ice. So as soon as I hear him say sweep, within 1/10 of a second, 5/100ths of a second, I am down sweeping, ready to go. So the person on the stone never needs to be looking up at the skip. Only the person in the open position is looking at the skip. So that's tip number 5. That way the person holding the stone can always be ready to sweep within a snap of a second. So those are 5 tips that if you start implementing today with your team, go over these 5 steps, practice it, and implement it in your games, and you'll notice that your team will start making more shots and will start communicating better just naturally by doing these things. So hopefully you find this useful, and good curling.